Is someone cutting onions in here, or is it just Chef Oda with these tear-jerkers for backstories? So, yeah, this episode is going to be another emotional roller coaster, so let's get into it. But before we do, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and join the Discord down below. And now, let's jump into One Piece Volume 9, Tears, featuring chapters 72 to 81. Part 1, The Death of Captain Usopp. This will cover chapters 72 to 76. While this episode is primarily going to discuss Nami, her backstory, and how we move forward from here, the volume starts off with arguably my favorite Usopp moment of the series so far. We watch as Arlong is set to kill Genzo, when suddenly, Usopp hits Arlong with an exploding star, distracting Arlong long enough so that he abandons his attack on Genzo. I love seeing this moment of bravery from Usopp, because it brings back memories of his fight against the Cat Pirates, and this action sets the entire volume in motion. As Usopp is captured by the fishmen, Hachi takes Zoro to Cocoa Village after Momu doesn't come for lunch, and we see Luffy and Sanji beat Momu for attempting to eat their food. I have to give Oda props for how he handles multiple stories at once and really makes this world and story feel alive. Not once when I was reading did I feel like things were taking a slowdown for exposition or for context, but rather, everything was moving based on how other characters were impacting the story. It is brilliant writing, one of the many things that makes this story great. As all this is going down, we finally get our first insight into Nami's true intentions, as she reveals to us that she made an agreement with Arlong when she was a child. That agreement being 100 million berries for the freedom of Cocoa Village. I actually wanted to give props to the live-action adaptation here, as I find that Nojiko only finding out at the last minute about Nami's true intentions behind buying Cocoa Village from Arlong was much more emotionally impactful there than it was in the manga or in the anime. Now, both iterations work, don't get me wrong, but I really thought the live-action nailed it with some additional emotional depth that the manga and anime lacked. This is when two major events shift the story in pretty important ways. The first event being the attack of Commodore Purin Purin's ship by the fishmen, reminding us about how powerful fishmen are, but also Nami killing Usopp back at Arlong Park. Now, from a pure narrative perspective, we as an audience have been given enough context to know that Nami isn't truly aligned with Arlong, and that Usopp is too important of a character to be killed off this early in the series. But how Oda presents this situation causes us to contemplate how Nami pulled this off, and what she actually did in order to protect Usopp, as we the audience are presented with the scene of both Nami and Usopp bleeding. The same image seen by Johnny as he informs Zoro, as well as Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku, who just made their dramatic entrance on the island, about the death of Usopp. This sets up some major reveals in the next part of the volume, as Usopp arrives to the group informing them that Nami saved his life, Nami telling Luffy and the others to leave her alone, and Nojiko arriving to drop some major bombshells about Nami's past. Part 2, Nami's Backstory. This will cover chapters 77 to 79. Like with all four of the crew members we have seen so far, each of them have had their entire lives shaped by their past experiences, and Nami is arguably the individual whose past gives us the most insight into why she does the things she does today. Before we get started, let me quickly mention that Luffy doesn't listen to Nojiko explain what happened to Nami as a child. This might come off as rude, but I actually think it gives us important insight into Luffy as a character. He really doesn't care about where you come from or what happened to you. He only cares about whether or not you are his friend. And because Nami is somebody he considers a friend, nothing Nojiko could say about her would change his perspective on her as a person or as his friend. This is a nice little peek into Luffy, who for all intents and purposes is a fairly easy character to understand, and this all happens as Nojiko drops the bomb that is Nami's past. To summarize what happened in Nami's childhood as simply as I can, Nami and Nojiko were victims of a massive village raid by pirates, who were rescued by a marine named Bellemere, who was on the brink of death, but overcame her injuries in order to rescue the duo and raise them as her children in Cocoa Village. The family was poor, a result of their tangerine business being slow, which led to Nami and Nojiko causing trouble in the village. This is something that bothered Nami as a kid and led her to reveal how she truly felt to her foster family. She hates being poor, and she does not view Nojiko as her sister or Bellemere as her mother. This leads Nami to run away after she's scolded by Bellemere, and as Nojiko chases after her, trouble enters Cocoa Village. Arlong and his crew arrive and begin ransacking Cocoa Village and demanding tribute payments of 100,000 berries per adult and 50,000 berries per child. Those who are unable to pay would be killed. Nami and Nojiko attempt to run and return to Bellemere, but are stopped by the town doctor, who tells them that Bellemere lacks the necessary funds to pay for their survival, so they will need to leave the village so they can remain alive and save Bellemere from an unfortunate end. After an admittedly awesome attempt to stop Arlong by Bellemere, she readies her payment, but in a twist, pays for her 2 children, and not for herself. Bellemere does this, saying that she would never deny that she is the mother of Nami and Nojiko, and as she apologizes to the 2 girls for her perceived failures as a mother, Nami and Nojiko are forced to watch as Arlong shoots Bellemere in the face, killing her instantly. Now, this backstory is both tragic, but also incredibly powerful in terms of Nami's character. Nami's greed does not come from a place of vice, but rather virtue, as the lack of money is what caused her mother to die. It's what prevented Nami from being able to buy things that she desired, like books, and is what is required in order to save her village. This also gives us insight into why Nami acts the way she does towards Luffy and the others. Nami is scared to let people in because she is scared by the prospect of losing them. She has worked her entire life to protect her village, refusing to cry and accepting the fact that those she is trying to protect view her as an enemy, somebody who betrayed them. Nami cried leaving the crew because she loved them, but like most things in her life, friendship would be too good to be true. I know for many, Nami is a character that you either really like or are incredibly neutral on, but her backstory paints her as somebody who has been through hell and is willing to walk deeper in order to help those she cares about. This is further highlighted by the fact that Nojiko reveals later on that Nami has never asked for help, but this will soon change. As Nojiko finishes recounting Nami's backstory, we watch the Marines arrive on the scene.
Don't overdo it! Now fall in the water.
Part 3, Luffy Help Me. This will cover chapters 80 to 81. The closing 2 chapters of this volume are incredibly emotional as Nami's entire life is turned upside down, as Captain Nezumi arrives in order to confiscate the berries Nami has collected in order to buy back her village's freedom. And because Nezumi was aware of the exact berry figure Nami has collected, we know that Nezumi got this information from Arlong. The interaction between Nami and Arlong is difficult to read, as Arlong attempts to gaslight Nami into believing that he has kept his end of the bargain. This is something I haven't really discussed, but throughout this entire volume, Arlong has doubled down on his willingness to sell Nami back Cocoa Village. In his words, because he is a fishman who does not break his promise. As we know, this isn't the case, as Nami's map-making ability is too valuable for Arlong to lose. And because he knows of Nami's love for her village, he's able to manipulate her based on this power imbalance. Like the Marines we've seen so far, those in power take advantage of those who are of a lower class and in a weaker state. Things get worse from here, as when Nami arrives back at Cocoa Village, we discover that the villagers have taken up arms. Tired of living under Arlong's rule, and in recognition of Nami's sacrifice, they are going to storm Arlong Park, knowing that it will likely result in their death. We have a touching scene where Genzo tells Nami that she doesn't need to sacrifice anymore. And as the villagers march towards Arlong Park, Nami knows that this means everything she has worked towards, everything she has fought for, and everybody she cares about will be killed. And all her hard work and sacrifice was for nothing. This leads Nami to unleash her emotional pain onto her body, stabbing her Arlong tattoo. In a gut-wrenching scene, we see Nami bleed, stabbing herself over and over when suddenly, Luffy, the man who is unaware of the situation, arrives, simply to stop his friend from hurting herself. And after telling Luffy to leave, Nami finally asks,
Luffy,
to which Luffy responds, the symbolic gesture of placing the straw hat on Nami's head signifies to us and to Nami that the hat is not the only treasure Luffy holds dear. The other treasure is his friends. And as the volume ends, we watch Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp arrive at Arlong Park, ready to fight for their friend. And that does it for Volume 9. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, and I will see you all on Friday for Volume 10. But until then, take care.